Hello, and welcome to the Gameplay Cast's review for the third-person survival horror game Dead Space, the 2023 remake. Dead Space is a survival horror game developed by Glenn Schofield and published by EA. It follows a Starship engineer, Isaac Clarke, as he is deployed on a mission to repair the USG Ishimura. The ship his girlfriend, Nicole, happens to be stationed on. This repair mission soon turns into a fight for survival, as something very wrong has occurred on board. Most of the crew are dead, or worse, mutated into space horrors, intent on killing anything that still lives. This version of the game is a 2023 remake of the original by Motive Studios, and again published by EA, who own the IP. Now when this game was announced alongside a similar game, the Callisto Protocol, made by the original Dead Space dev, Glenn Schofield, you'd be forgiven for thinking there can only be one winner. I mean, after all, we're talking about the OG in being a terrible game developer. EA absolutely wrote the book on how to murder titles and annoy gamers, all while paying your executives more and more money. Sorry, I think my bias may have slipped out there. So, as always, it's time to ask the all-important question. Is the Dead Space remake worth your time? Well, actually, it is. In a bizarre twist of fate, this EA-made game is an absolute fan-pleaser, while Callisto Protocol is the title that's left gamers disappointed. The first and best thing about this game is that it's a faithful adaptation of the original. It's a single-player game that does exactly what it says on the tin. Given that it's an EA game, is even more surprising, especially since they've famously joked about single-player games not making any money. Hogwarts Legacy. Elden Ring. Anyway, the atmosphere of the game is set perfectly from the start. You're immediately isolated and thrown into the fray. Unlike the Resident Evil HD remake that I reviewed previously, check out that video if you haven't already, which uses primarily sound and camera angles to get the hairs on the back of your neck to stand up. Dead Space uses darkness, anticipation, and of course sound to generate its horror atmosphere. You soon learn that when the lights go out and or everything goes quiet, that bad things are about to happen. And it's the knowledge that you know you're about to be attacked, but you don't know from where or by what, in combination with great sound and light use, that really drives the horror of the game. That and of course disgusting violence and gore. Another big boon for the game is how fleshed out and real the Ishimura feels as the setting. There are tons of details throughout, be it tools and items on people's workstations, gory warning messages, magazines. Everything feels lived in, and that makes the game universe seem real and believable, which really helps with the immersion. The story isn't anything too complicated, but it's a survival horror. I'm not expecting anything revolutionary. Isaac is sent to repair the Ishimura as part of a fast response team, and his girlfriend is on board. He hopes to see her. Since the ship is a mess and many people have died, he's understandably worried about her and wants to try and find/save her if he can. Events get in the way and he has to deviate from his main personal objective to save the ship. Along the way, he discovers details of the Marker, which seems to be an alien device that's linked to all of the crazy things that have happened. It also seems to be linked to an in-universe religion. I feel the narrative is good, and the game's voice acting and pacing is similarly good. Time to talk about gameplay. Happily, it feels just as good as the original, if not even better. Removing limbs has never been so much fun. There's a good selection of different weapons, 7 in total, all of which have different attack styles and alternate fire abilities. On top of that, you can spend nodes to upgrade each weapon, as well as your iconic engineering suit. There's also the status and kinesis abilities, which help give the combat something extra on top of the third-person shooting core. There's also a good amount of enemy variety, all of which are more or less susceptible to certain weapon types. I think something that the game does really well is switching up the gameplay. It would have been all too easy to simply fight monsters in technical corridors, but there's more here. The game has some simple puzzles, some zero-G sections, and even some bits on the exterior hull of the ship. Combined with the various boss fights and set pieces, and while most of these sections are relatively short, it nonetheless breaks up the core third-person shooting mechanics in such a way that it never really feels like a grind. Lastly, in terms of gameplay, I played the game mainly on hard mode, and it actually felt hard, which is a good thing. Ammo needed to be managed, and if an encounter went wrong, which it regularly did, the monsters would do serious damage. Lastly, I've already said how much I enjoyed the sound use and sound effects in the game, but what about the visuals? In a word, the game looks great. There's very few graphical errors that stick out. I think it's fair to say the Ishimura has never looked better.
It is your destiny.
When it comes to the negatives of the game, I can't help feel that I've been influenced by other people's reviews at this point, as I'm really struggling to find real issues with the game. I suppose my biggest complaint is the map/menu system. Having the view pop up in-game is a nice idea, but in reality most of the time I forget that there are different directional controls, so I end up looking away from the map, then faffing about to remember how to zoom in and navigate. It's minor, but I think having a full screen menu system would have been a lot better. This one, where they've tried to make it more immersive, results in the opposite effect, in my opinion. I do feel the movement controls can be a tad clunky too. For me, the game needed a dodge/roll mechanic, as although you can strike and stamp with Isaac, more often than not it would have been advantageous and more believable to dodge around opponents' attacks. Instead, you either time a counter-strike just right, or simply tank the blow. In the same vein, the monsters' character boxes are quite annoying. It might be deliberate in that the designers wanted you to get boxed in, but it's kind of annoying when you stasis an opponent and try to move through a gap that's easily bigger than Isaac, and you just end up being snagged and not able to move because a monster has a tiny outstretched tentacle. Anyway, I can't remember if the same node system was used in Dead Space 2, but it does slightly irritate me that you have to connect all the nodes together instead of just being able to upgrade the nodes that you want. Not a big deal really, but yeah. And while I'm on the minor gripe tree, it's not really a con, but those freaky baby things, damn, they annoy the hell out of me. I think with survival horror, it's really mainly about the atmosphere the game can generate. Of course you want all the games to be immersive and draw you in, but survival horror really needs to get this right in order to be a great game. It needs to speak to your subconscious and play on your nerves. This is more than just jump scares, it's about tapping into human fears and at the same time creating a world or a story where you really want to know what happens and get your character to the end in one piece. Happily, the Dead Space remake does this in spades. The atmosphere is great and the setting kind of feels like a fusion between the Alien movies and Resident Evil. There's an interesting narrative and the Ishimura is a character in itself. All tied together with a core of solid gameplay. The mechanics are all good and there's a good variety of weapons, items, abilities and upgrades to enable players to play their way and to really have some fun with it. I mean, does it ever get old using kinesis to rip a pole off the wall and skewer a mutant freak? Hell no. Furthermore, the inclusion of the puzzles, zero-G sections, bosses and set pieces nicely breaks up the flow of the third-person shooting to keep the player's interest and avoid the grind. The only niggles I have are pretty superficial. Dodge button would have been nice, but the lack of it isn't game-breaking. I think my only real actual complaint is that I don't like the menu screen. I get that they were trying to make it seem like Isaac was actually looking at the menu, but I just found it a bit tedious, as I almost never remember the control scheme. Is it a real bugbear though? Probably not. I therefore feel the need to give this game a 10 out of 10. Wow. I know it's a remake of an older game, which was also great in its time, but this really is a benchmark of how to do survival horror, and also how to remake old video games. I'm still surprised, even after 10 months or so, that EA greenlit this game, and also that the studio did such a good job with it. But credit where credit's due. The Dead Space remake gets the Gameplay Cast's thumbs up. It's currently on Xbox Game Pass, or priced at around £23, that's about $29 on Steam, and in this man's opinion, worth every penny. I still don't like EA though. I took the destruction of BioWare personally, and I'll take that hate to the grave. If you want to check out the Dead Space remake following this review, it's available on consoles and PC. This concludes the Gameplay Cast review of the third-person survival horror game, Dead Space.